This is the complete Resident Evil 4 retrospective, and it's kind of a long one, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. In 2005, Capcom released Resident Evil 4, a genre-defining masterpiece that not only changed survival horror, but the entire gaming landscape as a whole. It rewrote the blueprint for modern action games, inspiring titles like Gears of War, Dead Space, Uncharted, and even BioShock. It was a triumph, and one that has since carved itself into gaming history. It's been 20 years since its release, and its influence is still felt to this day. It remains a staple within pop culture, an icon that possesses the ability to transport you back in time. It was a game that never really changed. No matter the year, it was always waiting for you to boot it back up. But what if it did change? What if it became something new? Well, that dream would become reality in June of 2022, when the remake was officially announced. The question wasn't whether or not Capcom could pull it off. No, it was if they should even do it in the first place. Why alter something so sacred? Well, the goal was not to simply remake a masterpiece. It was to make a new one. A game that would not only stand on its own 2 feet, but walk alongside the giants of the series. It was a reimagining, one that sought to redefine the genre once more. It was the rebirth of Resident Evil 4.
September 30th, 1998. It's a day I'll never forget. The cop inside me died that day. And that night, Raccoon City was wiped out, thanks to the bioweapons created by Umbrella. Somehow I made it out, but too many others weren't so lucky.
Much like the original, the remake starts with Leon, as he remembers the Raccoon City outbreak. But the remake immediately does something different. It goes deeper. It highlights the trauma of the incident, and it explores a new depth of his character in quieter moments. It's in his eyes now, a withered and despairing look, as he remembers the horrors that occurred. His internal struggle is personified by his need to ensure that what happened that night never happens again. Raccoon City hardened him, but most importantly, broke him. He harnessed all of that guilt and is using it as a driving force to keep fighting. He's no longer some rookie cop. He's now a weapon. Now, obviously, he still retains the cheesy one-liners that made him so iconic.
I'm sure you boys didn't come all the way out here to roast marshmallows. Maybe you did.
But these moments of levity are complemented with a much deeper character arc, making him an even more compelling protagonist. This is very different right off the bat compared to the original. In 2005, Leon was more in line with a traditional action star. He was the cool guy, constantly cracking one-liners and flirting whenever he got the chance.
I've sent my right hand to dispose of you.
Your right hand comes off?
Is she... well, you know.
Don't worry, she's cool.
He was arrogant and a lot less serious, but his charm was undeniable. He didn't seem as affected by the events that occurred 6 years prior. However, across both games, the mission stays the same. Leon is tasked with saving Ashley Graham, the president's daughter. As the fog rolls in, it becomes apparent that the original environment has taken a much more grim and dreary turn. The walk from the car to the house is littered with the corpses of livestock. The path is far more sinister and foreboding compared to the original. There's an oppressive feeling in the air, and Capcom immediately sets the tone for the game. It's clear that Leon is dealing with something much darker than before, but it's when he arrives at the hunting lodge that things take a familiar turn. Instead of immediately jumping out the window, like in the original, Leon is forced to move deeper into the house. The added level of suspense in the opening really works to sell the new tone and vibe. The first kill is much different in the remake. It wastes no time in showing us the horrors of the Las Plagas. We get our first introduction to a ganado desnucado, which is a new mutation of the plagas, specifically designed for the remake. It's a lot more realistic and grotesque. The ganado's neck is broken, but somehow he's become even more aggressive. And after killing him, Leon's cover is blown. The village is now fully aware that there is a trespasser on their land, and it's here where the hunt begins. This is where we get our first look at Hunnigan, and instead of the classic sitcom-like radio call, we see her in an actual cutscene. Her job is still exactly the same. She provides remote assistance on the comms, but one thing she can't do is prevent the ganados from crashing into the room.
Gotta go. Talk later.
So now is the perfect time to jump through that window.
I'll let myself out.
The intensity of the moment only continues to ramp up as we make our way to the village square, which is one of the most iconic sequences in the original. The moment the gate opens, the same dread that coated the village all those years ago returns. The villagers are hollow husks, shuffling around the land, performing everyday tasks as if stuck in an endless, morbid routine. The suspense boils over when the attention is suddenly shifted as Leon is thrown into pure and utter chaos.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
This version of the village fight is much more intense and frantic compared to the OG. The ganados are relentless with their attacks. They work together to suffocate Leon whenever he tries to run, constantly cutting off escape routes, making it feel like there is nowhere to go. The ganados possess a sort of degree of intelligence. They communicate with one another through a collective hive mind, and devise plans to make sure Leon does not succeed. But you know who isn't messing with all that? Leon, who honestly is even more of a one-man army this time around. He moves around with precision and fluidity. The combat almost feels like a dance, using the knife that was given to him by Marvin as a vengeful shield to, parry a chainsaw. In the remake, Capcom amped up everything about the gameplay and the systems. You can now parry attacks and move much more freely without any real restrictions. The combat is much more violent and bloody than before. Even the way Leon moves his pistol when a ganado gets too close is tactical. The gunplay is incredible. Everything about the new and improved gameplay is fun as hell, and the 6 years of training is put on display against these, poor, infected villagers. By the time the bell is rung, it's clear that the soul of the original is still very much there.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
It's important to note that in the original game, the entire village section has a distinct look and feel to it, one that is painted with a washed-out palette, making the environment feel more desolate and cold. It felt like we were placed in a twilight zone of sorts, a twisted reality that was drained of all life. We're constantly reminded that we are an outsider, a trespasser, disturbing the balance within their so-called community. The mood was scored by a foreboding soundtrack, paired with some chilling sound design. It created a sense of panic in each early encounter, which blended perfectly with the slower gunplay and the boulder chases. Now, when it comes to the remake, the environment feels more alive, more lived in. The colors are warmer in contrast to the bleakness of the OG, but they still have an underlying darkness to them, reinforcing the dread within every situation. Although there's a noticeable soundscape, it lacks the chilling soundtrack that made every encounter in the OG village unsettling. Still, an ominous beauty looms over both versions. The element that truly makes the remake shine is the brand new take on the environment and level design. It breaks off from the beaten path forged by the OG. It's an entirely different beast. Every set piece and encounter is more intricate and handcrafted to fit the new vision. The village feels more like an actual community, built around functionality, whereas in the original, the areas felt more scattered and desolate. The cabin is now within sight of the windmill, the lake is accompanied by a fish farm, and the village manor is far more isolated than before. It sits alone, covered in overgrowth, as it watches over the village square. Even Salazar's castle is more prominent within the environment. It stands as this looming figure, silently observing us through the distant fog. It's these details that make the village seem much more alive. All of this combined with the gameplay creates a brand new experience, but one that also feels deeply rooted in the charm of the original. There are a lot of overlapping details and differences between the remake and the OG. The section includes various areas and puzzles that weren't present in 2005, but there are also areas that are practically identical, just with slight changes. The same goes for the systems as well. The merchant and the attaché case make a return, and they've both been revamped to service the new style.
Welcome. I've got something new for you, mate.
But this time around, he gives us more stuff to do in the form of merchant requests, which are essentially just little chores to do around the map in exchange for spinels, which can then be used to buy treasures and various items. Now, inventory management has always been a core element of Resident Evil as a whole. It was always a question of what to bring with you and what to leave behind. The original RE4 changed that with the attaché case, allowing the player to essentially hoard items as long as they had the space. Of the many memorable aspects of the original, the case is one that really stood out. It was a game changer. It allowed players to organize their items exactly how they wanted to. In the remake, the attaché case is not only a storage device, it's a jack of all trades. It allows us to craft ammo and items, and we can also decorate it with charms and change out the case itself. It's a lot more dynamic in the remake, but I still prefer the original. There's just something about it that itches my brain. Maybe it's just Leon staring at me from the corner of the screen. Now, much like the brand new take on the environment and atmosphere, the narrative has been delicately crafted to uphold the plot of the original, while making sure to innovate and expand on the emotional depth of the story and its characters. The village does a fantastic job at planting the seeds of the conflict. It's here where we are reintroduced to some of the most iconic characters from the original. But this time around, each and every one of them is retold in a way that fits the new tone. Capcom carefully weaves more emotional depth into each character, and it feels much more natural given the circumstances at hand. The first of these characters is Luis, and instead of him being tied up in a wardrobe, he's now stuffed into a bag. And before any proper introductions happen, they are interrupted by Mendez, the village chief, or Big Cheese himself.
The big cheese. What?
Stop right there!
This scene is much darker than the original, and it's here where the real conflict of the story is presented. Leon in both versions is injected with the Las Plagas parasite by a cult named the Los Illuminados, which is led by a man named Osmond Sadler. They worship the Plagas as if it's a god, and he himself stands as a sizable threat. But right now, he's simply just a haunting illusion, wiggling his way into Leon's psyche. The way the Las Plagas affects him in the remake is much more prevalent. He's strong, but not strong enough to completely ignore its influence. But for now, Leon finds himself chained up alongside Luis, who is quite different from the way he was portrayed in the original. Back in 2005, Luis was more of an enigmatic figure. His true intentions were never clear, but here, he is given a much more personal narrative and purpose. His role in the story has been increased. Luis is a man seeking redemption for the life he once lived. He was once a researcher for Umbrella, and was involved in various projects throughout the years that tied directly to the overarching story of Resident Evil. He then began working with the Los Illuminados. The guilt and self-loathing that he feels drives his character to do good. He's very much entrenched within the conflict of the Lost Plagas, and getting out of it is not as simple as just walking away, much like the chains tying the two of them together. This moment forces them to work alongside one another to escape, and it's during the struggle that Luis tells Leon that Ashley is in the church. Now, in order to get to the church, Leon needs the insignia key, which across both versions is found in the village manor, the home of Mendez. Once again, he overpowers Leon, but this time a bullet comes through the window. His rescuer doesn't stick around, but she'll be back soon enough. For now, the true descent into the village has just begun. In the village section, there are two main boss fights standing between Leon and the church, Del Lago and El Gigante. Both of these fights are really faithful to the original, with only slight differences that serve to enhance the overall experience and scale. Del Lago's fight across both versions plays out relatively the same, but instead of being knocked off the boat, you kind of just get staggered. Sadly, that means there are no more QTEs of Leon swimming at Mach 6. Even though Del Lago is a bit more frantic in the remake, it's still 100 times easier to actually hit him with the harpoon. The aiming in the OG is pretty jank during this fight. In my opinion, it's definitely the weakest boss across both versions. Now, as soon as the fight ends, Leon passes out for around 6 hours as a result of the plagas slowly curdling the blood within his veins. But the main difference now is what comes after. The surrounding area has been completely altered and feels much more sinister and demonic. At this point in the original, Leon is led almost directly to the El Gigante. But in the remake, Capcom expands on this entire chapter, allowing us to explore much more freely and backtrack wherever we want to. It introduces new treasures and puzzles within the world that makes every area feel more interconnected and rich, adding a layer of depth without disrupting the pacing. In fact, it creates a rather seamless flow, resulting in a natural progression into the reimagined El Gigante. Similar to Del Lago, he undergoes some minor changes, but for the most part, he is still the same towering giant as before, stomping his way around the claustrophobic arena, all while launching shacks at Leon. It's an incredibly nostalgic fight, and one that remains legendary the moment this happens. The way Capcom delicately handled the most beloved moments really shows how much they cared about upholding the initial vision for the game. Everything about it feels like an evolution of an already refined recipe. From the fights to the unrelenting and violent nature of the plagas, it's a familiar brutality reimagined for the modern age. One that leads Leon to the church, and in the presence of Ashley Graham.
Just let me go.
Listen. Easy with that. My name's Leon. I'm here in the president's orders and...
Much like Leon, Ashley has undergone a change. She was once a simple damsel in distress, a character we were forced to protect, one that was very surface level, often feeling more like an objective rather than a person with a distinct personality. But now she's so much more. Apart from the noticeable appearance change, Capcom took the time in making Ashley feel more compelling. Obviously, she's still scared and vulnerable. I mean, who wouldn't be when thrown into any situation like this? But everything about her reactions feel much more natural and human. She acts her age this time around, and despite the immense weight of the situation, she keeps going. Ashley is a crucial part of the narrative in both games. I mean, she's why Leon is here in the first place. It's a constant tug-of-war battle between him and the Los Illuminados. She's constantly captured and saved and then captured again, while also being at the mercy of the Plaga. Despite that, she's never really a burden, especially in the remake. This time around, her AI is much more refined. Her responses and movements while in combat are much more realistic and fluid. Now, the moment they leave the church, Leon's gotta lock in. This leads us directly into one of the most intense moments in the game, the village chase. The pacing for the rest of the village section is unrelenting, aggressive, and chaotic. Everything about the revival of this sequence only serves to intensify the chase. The rain is being thrashed around by the gusts of wind as the environment begins to shed its layer of deceit. There isn't a single element that lies dormant during the chase. Even the farm animals have had enough. It's a descent into a nightmare, and it only becomes worse when we enter the cabin. The cabin is notorious for being brutal. It's a claustrophobic nightmare, and the anxiety that it evokes is insane. It's one of the most dreaded parts of the original. It feels as though the walls have begun to close. It's a coffin, big enough for 3. Despite all that, the remake somehow makes the original cabin seem tame in comparison. The cabin itself is technically bigger in the remake, but somehow it feels more congested. There's no escape. The waves of Ganados crash into the building with a vicious craze. It's intense, and it feels even longer this time around. On top of all the chaos, Capcom decided to, put a brute in the living room. It's genuinely insane, and just as the situation becomes even more overwhelming, Ashley comes bursting through the door. What follows is completely unique to the remake. In the original, the villagers just give up and stop pursuing. But now, they continue to force themselves into the cabin, and they only stop when they are physically barred from continuing. I can't decide which is more unnerving, the slow retreat of the Ganados, or their constant pursuit. It's here where the path of the two games split. In the original, Luis kind of just leaves the cabin, but now he flees alongside Leon and Ashley. But the one thing that can always catch up to them is the Plaga.
What's happening to me?
Ashley, is this the first time you've coughed up blood like this?
You want to start explaining?
The cough, the blood, is caused by something called the Plaga.
Time is one of the main villains of this game. It's only a matter of hours that stand between Leon and the infection. We learn that there is a way to kill it, or at least suppress it. Luis has developed a way to combat the Plaga, slowly undoing the work he was tied to. His backstory starts to show through the cracks, but the curtains are quickly drawn before he reveals too much. He wants to help, but not at the cost of his freedom.
We'll contact you later. Hey, got a smoke?
The one holding the keys to that freedom is Ada Wong, a character whose intentions are never clear, and one who is shrouded in mystery. She walks a fine line between ally and enemy, and you can never be sure when the line has been fully crossed. This is the first true introduction to her character within the remake. Her mission is to obtain the Amber, which is a more potent and concentrated sample of the Plaga, one that can be used to rival Sadler's power, and she's relying on Luis to give it to her. This sample is Luis's ticket out, and having the two of them work together adds a whole new dynamic to the story. Ada is obviously known for playing her cards close to her chest, so even when we are shown her true intentions, it seems fabricated. I also find it really interesting that they decided to fully introduce her this early on. In the original, her character isn't fully introduced until the castle. The player only sees Ada whenever Leon bumps into her, but now we get to see her in action, without actually being in her presence. It adds so much to the story, and the same can be said about all the new additions leading to Mendez. Instead of choosing where to go, the remake forces Leon and Ashley to fight the Chainsaw Sisters.
Great.
Sorry, didn't realize that was yours.
I am flattered, but I'm a one-lady type of guy.
But when one obstacle is cleared, another shows up. Just when we thought Capcom couldn't possibly elevate this section even more, they throw Mendez at us as if he's Mr. X or Nemesis. The way this scenario unfolds is incredible, and it actually shows the lengths Leon will go to protect Ashley. Despite knowing of Mendez's power, he still doesn't hesitate in confronting him. Across the 3 encounters with him so far, Leon has probably been thrown about 60 feet in the air. Leon is Ashley's shield, and she's his shot at redemption, to make up for all the people he couldn't save in Raccoon City. So it doesn't matter who stands in his way, he's getting her home. This time, it has to be different. So when the moment arrives and Leon has to face Mendez head on, he's ready to do whatever it takes to stop him.
You know that.
Oh, Almighty, grant me the strength to crush your enemies.
Despite the new layer of seriousness in Leon's character, he is still very much, Leon. I mean, what's the Mendez fight without him saying hasta luego?
Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.
Let's get ugly.
Not only does Mendez look even more menacing, he's also more aggressive than ever. This time around, we unfortunately can't just throw incendiary grenades at him, as sad as it is. Instead, Leon has to dodge various attacks as the fire rapidly engulfs the arena. Mendez continues to violently whip his tail, and all we can do is evade and shoot. His second phase is far less personal and up close in the remake. He chucks explosive barrels and debris at Mach 6. It's a really engaging fight, and one that honors its lineage.
Give my regards to your god.
Leon then comes crashing out of the window as the barn is taken by the fire. My favorite thing about this scene is how much Ashley helps despite not actually being in the fight. The act of her breaking the window and helping Leon up shows that she cares about him and realizes the severity of the situation. She tries her best to pull her weight despite not being a special agent. In the original, she just asks if he's okay.
Are you okay, Leon?
With Mendez reduced to ashes, Leon and Ashley can now move past the village. But when one door closes, another opens. They find themselves stepping into a new nightmare. One just as elegant as it is haunting. Welcome to the castle.
Come on.
The moment Leon and Ashley cross the bridge, they are welcomed into a gothic nightmare. One that feels handcrafted by Edgar Allan Poe himself. It's a stark contrast from the bleakness of the village. It feels like a place frozen in time, an architectural wonder that was kept hidden in the dark. This isn't some sanctuary. No, it's an unholy breeding ground for evil. A wolf in sheep's clothing, hiding behind an ornate design. The castle in the remake has been reframed in a way that makes for a hauntingly beautiful yet wacky experience. Out of the main areas in the game, this is the one that has undergone the most drastic transformation. Everything about it has been altered in some way. The narrative, the tone, the pacing, the encounters, all of it has been reformed to feel more cohesive. While the castle in the original was incredibly memorable, it often felt disjointed. It was a mishmash of different styles and ideas rather than one connected experience. The level design felt like a gauntlet of sorts, and it lacked the connective tissue to make it all feel unified. Capcom reimagined this section to create a better flow. As great as the OG castle is, it really was just a brainstorm of ideas tossed into one area. I mean, there were zealots with rocket launchers and rooms with lava. It was like the definition of a video game, which, is kind of the point. However, the genre has evolved since then. Games in the horror genre have been leaning more towards atmospheric and cinematic experiences, and it's clear that Capcom wanted to try something new, and it worked. But sadly, some things have been completely replaced in order to bring their new vision to life. The rooms are much more grounded to fit the tone. That isn't to say that the action is gone, far from it actually. The castle has a few set pieces of its own that rival the OG. But just like the original, the castle welcomes us with a bang. The catapults make a return, and they're just beautiful. And this time around, we get to control the cannon, which feels pretty good. I mean, who wouldn't want to blow a zealot to Kingdom Come? After blasting through the main gate, the flow of the section immediately changes. Instead of going through various rooms to obtain the castle key, Leon and Ashley just walk through the front door, and are immediately greeted by Ramon Salazar, a little bastard himself.
Pleasure to finally make your acquaintance, Mr. Kennedy.
Who the hell are you?
Salazar is one of the goofiest characters in all of Resident Evil. He's like if Benjamin Button was a Scooby-Doo villain. He was an eccentric character. Whenever he was in a scene, you knew it was going to be good. Whether it was his cheesy insults or his unintimidating presence, he was a joy to have on screen. Now, it's no secret that his role was reduced in the remake. He still gets a good amount of screen time, but it's just not as much as the OG. He's also just not as theatrical as he was back in 2005. His reimagining is much more serious, or at least as serious as one can be while looking like that. His appearance has been skewed in a way that makes him look so much older than he did before. He's more withered and evil looking despite being the exact same age as he was in the original. But regardless what year it is, he's still got a short temper and is quick to boast about Sadler's plan. He lays it all out for Leon, and it's paired with the best shot in the entire game.
How novel. Nonetheless, you see, the girl must be ours. With a girl as the very source, your United States and then the entire world shall overflow with his grace. For that is the iron will of my master, the most holy, Lord Sadler. So then, you will comply, yes?
In the original, Sadler is actually the one to tell you his master plan. He does this right after you rescue Ashley from the church. But since Sadler's role has also been significantly reduced in the remake, they gave that job to Salazar, and honestly, I think it's more fitting. But essentially, Sadler's plan was to infect Ashley and send her back to the United States in hopes of her infecting the president, leading to world domination. It's a plan, all right.
Yeah, fat chance, Ramon. The girl's just fine. With me.
Salazar's welcoming becomes even warmer when he sets the zealots loose on Leon. What follows is a dark descent into the depths of the castle, one plagued with familiar horrors twisted into a new light. The undercroft of the castle is a blood-stained prison littered with rusty metal and corpses that are neither cold nor warm. It's an immediate shift in tone when compared to the original, which favors age and grandeur over the darker horror elements present in the remake. But there's one thing in the remake that is even hungrier than before. The Garrador makes a return and is more vicious and detailed than ever. He looks and acts more animalistic, baring his teeth, frothing from the mouth, slashing his claws in a violent frenzy. Even with this new horrific makeover, he's still the same creature as before, one that has been locked away for a reason. To remedy the inconsistencies with some of the pacing from the original, the remake elongates this section a bit, adding in puzzles that weren't there in 2005. The sword puzzle, for instance, has been rewritten and reformulated to adhere to the new pacing. It's no longer right after the catapults, it's before the waterhole, which is an incredibly iconic yet daunting room. It's notorious for its savagery. It's the true skill check for anyone on their first playthrough in the original. Constant waves of shielded enemies, crossbows, maces, and, Ashley. This was one of the encounters that intrigued me the most when the remake was first announced. I wasn't sure how Capcom would go about changing it, but they managed to make something entirely different, but the same all at once. It's an odd dichotomy. The layout is similar, but also incredibly different during the first half of the encounter. The room is decorated with the dim glow of torchlight, whereas in the original, it's very bright and overly detailed. The remake shows a tattered and torn version of the hall, with fountains of tar-like goop showering the floors. The substance is similar to the mold from RE7 and Village. It very much could be the same thing. As the waves of enemies descend into the room, it becomes clear that Capcom has conjured an entirely different beast. The section has evolved alongside its gameplay to create a tense yet memorable experience that stands on its own, while also paying homage to the classic. There's an added level of urgency in the section that forces us to leave the comfort zone of the original and step into a new horror. Now, with all that being said, I think the original Waterhall is more memorable. The feeling that room evokes is unrivaled, but the remake's version is still a worthy heir to an infamous throne. In classic Resident Evil fashion, things continue to ramp up the moment Leon and Ashley escape the Waterhall. There's a disturbance in the air surrounding Ashley, and it all comes to a head when she loses control.
Worry about her. Worry about your own skin. Foolish little lamb.
In both versions, Ashley is controlled by Sadler, but the remake takes this idea and makes it much more violent. She attacks Leon, showing no regard for him at all. The Ashley Leon protected mere minutes ago is gone. In an effort to isolate herself before she hurts anyone else, she runs away out of both fear and desperation. In the original, Ashley just coughs up blood and gets ensnared in one of Salazar's traps. It's a much different vibe.
Ashley!
What's going on?
I love the way the remake handles Ashley's possession. It raises the stakes of the entire narrative by adding a level of uncertainty and danger to her character. And with Ashley out of the picture, Leon is left alone, forced to rescue her once more. And he's pretty annoyed at the whole situation.
Roost, come in. Things went to shit.
One of my favorite things about the new Leon is how irritated or annoyed he gets during certain situations. He genuinely just wants to get the hell out of the country and has no time for the theatrics that both Salazar and Sadler have planned for him. One thing that is specific to the original is the inclusion of radio banter between Leon and the villains. At this point in the story, Hunnigan's comms are cut and hijacked by Salazar, who talks shit to him constantly. This is one of my favorite things about the original. It gave birth to some of the best one-liners in the series.
Because you killed my small-time subordinate.
Sadler, you're small time.
I've sent my right hand to dispose of you.
Your right hand comes off?
It was just super cheesy and full of charm, but it would definitely feel out of place in the remake. This leads Leon to the wine cellar, which, funnily enough, used to be the castle parlor. You know, the room that contained the infamous sentry turret and rocket launcher? Completely different vibes this time around, I know. It's actually crazy. Capcom opted for an approach that favored horror with an emphasis on hysteria and claustrophobia. The Red Zealot performs an echoing chant, awakening the plaga within every cultist. One of the coolest changes about the Red Zealots is that the chant directly affects Leon as well. The plaga may not be fully evolved within him yet, but when the Zealot performs his chant, the parasite within him stirs, causing Leon to grip his head and stumble around the room. Even though I love the cheesiness of the original castle parlor, I much prefer this version. The parlor always felt like a bonus room that was thrown in to add some more flair to the gameplay, but the wine cellar feels like it truly belongs in the castle. It was seamlessly integrated into the overall design and concept. The flow has been drastically improved, but also heavily changed. Playing the two games back and forth from one another just puts into perspective how different it is. In the remake, Leon is reunited with Ada much sooner than in the OG, which saw him going through multiple encounters before getting to her, but now it's just the wine cellar. The interaction between the two characters is more subtle in the remake. You can feel the tension between them. The flirty nature of their relationship has been reignited. Both of them have a soft spot for one another, but neither would dare to admit it. The entire interaction is a lot less dramatic and cheesy, so that means there's no more flashbang sunglasses or Ada doing cartwheels. Leon isn't really surprised to see Ada even after her supposed death in Raccoon City. She obviously hides her true intentions from him and urges him to pretty much give up and leave Ashley behind. But of course, that isn't in the cards.
Right. How about we continue this discussion another time?
I'm a huge fan of how their relationship is handled in the remake. Every time they encounter one another, there's a certain feeling in the air, an invisible fog filled with words that were left unspoken. The emotions themselves reside in the eyes, and Leon is still very much drawn to Ada even after she's used him time and time again. It's a complicated dynamic, and one that will never become simpler.
See you later.
The next encounter is as action-heavy as it gets. This is a brand new set piece specifically designed for the remake. It's essentially a castle siege, but instead of an army trying to breach through the walls, the rampage comes from within. It's a purge designed for one man, Leon.
Oh, you were expecting me.
The encounter forces him to run what is essentially a gauntlet, an obstacle course of pure carnage. It's a very action movie-like sequence. It's over the top and chaotic, and becomes even more so when an armored El Gigante starts launching debris at us as we run.
Another one. You guys are really starting to become a giant pain in my ass.
Although this section isn't in the original, it somehow feels nostalgic. There's something about the blockbuster nature of the run that strums the chords of the original. I can't help but think of how it would have played if it were made in 2005. The battle comes to a climactic end when Leon shoots the El Gigante with yet another cannon. But just when we think it's over, the beast emerges for one last attack before plummeting to its death.
Sorry, I've had my fill of you guys.
After narrowly escaping death, Leon is led to a familiar place. However, there's no time for him to breathe, as he immediately has to comfort Ashley, who sits alone, crying.
Let's stay back. I might hurt you again. I'm so scared.
This scene is very important in reinforcing and strengthening the bond between the two characters. It's a moment of vulnerability for Leon and Ashley as they confide in their mutual infection. This reprieve and avid support from Leon is what implores Ashley to take a stronger stance on securing her safety. It's also the moment that Ashley realizes that he is also infected.
You too?
This emotional depth and support from Leon is not present in the original. Although his top priority in both games is to protect Ashley, it feels more personal and real in the remake. He's more selfless, and it goes all the way back to Raccoon City. Leon desperately doesn't want to lose anyone else, especially if he has the physical capability to prevent it from happening. After all, he trained just for this. Naturally, the person to break the bittersweet tension is Luis.
Sorry, I screwed up. Come to my rescue, Prince Charming.
I'll show you charming, pal.
Now, at this point in the original, Luis is dead. He's murdered by Sadler before Leon even saves Ashley for the first time. But in the remake, Luis calls Leon from the ballroom, drawing him through the dog maze, or the courtyard. This change sparked an entirely different approach to the pacing of the game. In fact, I'd say it was a welcome change. It allowed for an expansion of Luis's character and his influence over the narrative. It also allowed for Ashley to play a greater part in Leon's progression. As in the original, she was not part of the dog maze at all. This is something Leon traversed by himself. And on top of that, in the original, Ada's introduction is after the dog maze. I'd be lying if I said juggling both of these games at once isn't a bit much while writing this script, but anyways, the courtyard is still full of the same vicious dogs as before. But this time around, Leon has to unravel flags, while also protecting Ashley. Not much has really changed, but the same thing can't be said for the upcoming area. Not only are we greeted with one of the most beautiful parts of the castle, but we are also reunited with one of the major roadblocks from the original, the Chimera Wall. This iconic puzzle has been significantly changed for the remake. In 2005, the Chimera Wall was immediately introduced after you meet Salazar. It stood as a genuine blockade, barring you from progressing until you've placed all the pieces you've collected in their places. In the remake, the wall is a mere hurdle you have to get through. All the pieces are conveniently placed in the same area, creating a much faster pace for the puzzle and slimming down this section of the game entirely. After the wall, of course, is Leon's imprisonment. But what the cultists don't know is that they're pretty much just locked in there with him. Bro turns into John Wick.
Run. Now!
Just like before, we are thrown into Ashley's perspective, and Leon's skills and security are left back in the cage, leaving Ashley to endure this horrifying landscape all on her own. This feels almost like a role reversal compared to the original. Ashley this time around has to save Leon. Her emotional connection to Leon, as well as her dependence upon him, puts a drive within her to save him, not only as a need, but as a want. The only reason she feels this way is because of the conversation they had prior. The feeling that she is capable of surviving and being more than what she was derives itself from Leon. The change in her character creates a deeper sense of personality, rounding out her character and creating a broader sense of realism within the story. Her section is essentially a culmination of all the small moments and lessons coming together to change her for the better. From the gameplay perspective, the remake trails off from the original. Ashley now has a way to defend herself. She wields a lantern that casts a shining blue light, stunning the armaduras that pursue her. One of the main differences is the absence of QTEs. We now have to actually dodge the armaduras, which, speaking of, are way more aggressive in the remake. In the original, they're pretty slow and easy to avoid, but this time around, Ashley has to proceed with a much different level of caution. But all of that is short-lived because it essentially goes to shit. Ashley is immediately kidnapped by Verdugo the moment she gets a taste of freedom.
Shit!
And then we cut to Ada, who is standing amidst the chaos caused by Leon. She's on call with a man who is yet to be named, but her mission stays the same. She is still very much there for the Amber, but her hard exterior cracks when she calls Leon a good boy.
He's a good boy. Predictable.
Fine. Keep your mouth
mutt. But don't come crying to me if you get bit.
Soon after her call ends, she decides to throw Leon a bone and informs him that Ashley is being taken to the throne room, thus sending him deeper into the castle and into the ballroom. But before he even steps into the room, a presence makes itself known. The Novistadors make a return, and this time around, they are much easier to deal with than their older counterparts. They flock to Leon, seeking nothing but his blood. This time around, Ashley isn't there for them to just scoop up and fly away with.
Damn it! Ashley!
These giant-ass bugs were one of the most annoying parts of the original. They were tanky and unpredictable, and on top of that, they could go completely invisible. But now they act more like chameleons, altering their pigmentation to blend into any environment. Despite that, their role in the remake isn't as prevalent. It actually takes a while for them to be fully introduced, a stark contrast to how they were in the OG. In 2005, Leon fought them even before the castle parlor. It was right after Ashley ran into Salazar's trap. Capcom decided to hold off their introduction until the ballroom. The area itself is more elaborate and much bigger. Gameplay-wise, it's incredibly different. The only thing really keeping it somewhat familiar is the aesthetic. The ruined and dilapidated structures give it that nostalgic feeling. It's one of the turning points in the castle section, because what comes next is a point of no return. The path to the throne room is much more of a straight shot in the remake, whereas before, Leon had to traverse up the inner workings of a clock tower while simultaneously dodging crossbow shots and catapults. Capcom was nice enough to just merge the two towers from the OG into one structure at the very end of the castle section. But that's for later, because right now, Leon is about to step into the lion's den once more. Narratively, the throne room scene is much darker. Leon is pinned to the ground and forced to watch Ashley suffer.
Please, do continue. Do not resist, my dear. It serves only to make your suffering all the worse.
Please.
You sick!
The remake takes the scene much more seriously. It removes the wackiness of the original and replaces it with a more consistent tone. It shows the lengths the Los Illuminados will go to prolong Ashley's suffering. It makes them that much more menacing. The scene comes to an end when Leon is thrown into the execution pit.
Kennedy.
This time around, he doesn't have his grapple hook to save him. His path leads to the underground laboratory, which unveils the hidden layers that lie deep within the castle. Entering the laboratory feels like stepping into a time machine. There's a cold mist that complements the silence in the air. That silence is broken the moment the power is turned on. Leon is being hunted, but this is by no means a wild animal. No, this is Verdugo. Verdugo's fight is pretty much exactly the same. To call this a fight is generous. It's more like a standard chase. You see, Verdugo is the tankiest enemy in the entire game, so by no means is he easy to kill. Leon is meant to endure his attacks just long enough for the elevator to reach the ground floor, which, you know, takes a decade, so that hasn't changed at all either. Luckily, just like the original, there are liquid nitrogen tanks to freeze Verdugo. When he's frozen, he takes significantly more damage, but that obviously comes at the cost of ammo. But if you got a rocket launcher, he's pretty much just turned into ground beef. After narrowly escaping the grasp of Verdugo, Leon isn't even given a moment of reprieve, because not even a minute later, the plaga starts to pollute his veins once more. He is shown Sadler through the eyes of another man, Krauser, a man driven by his desire for ultimate power, and one who shares a close connection with Leon. Krauser was Leon's commanding officer and mentor. He trained him in the ways of close quarters combat, constantly reminding him that knives are faster. He's the one who turned Leon into a machine. But now he has betrayed the country he once fought for by bending his knee to Sadler. Krauser is a really interesting character in both versions. I also love his introduction in the remake. It was a nice touch to shift the perspective and have us see Sadler through his eyes looking up, as opposed to the more traditional introduction from the original. When Leon regains control of himself, he is greeted by Luis.
I'll make it cheap for you.
Luis gives him a suppressant in order to combat the Plaga. It's not a permanent solution, but it does buy him some much needed time. Ashley is still Leon's top priority, and now he has to work his way back up to her.
Don't worry about me. Ashley is the priority.
It's the beginning of the ascent, and right by Leon's side is Luis.
Then come, Sancho Panza. Let us rescue the Princess Dulcinea.
You could hurt yourself.
Hey, that was my dad.
This part of the game is relatively short and retains the same pacing for the most part, but instead of traversing through the mines alone like in the original, Luis fights right alongside us. It's a satisfying dynamic, and it gives each encounter a new feel to it. Now, style-wise, this section maintains the same aesthetic throughout, so that means there's no more tombs or ruins. It also has a few things narrative-wise that didn't make the cut. For instance, Leon choking Ada. When it comes to the encounters, they do play out differently, but for the most part, the only thing that has been changed about each one of them is the scale. Now that Luis is with Leon, the El Gigante fight is no longer a 1v2, it's a 2v2.
Now we're even.
Is it always like this with you?
The fight itself is a lot more cinematic this time around. This fight, however, has nothing on the revamped minecart section. The minecart sequence has been amped up to 11. It feels much more like a roller coaster in the remake. Not only do we have to shoot enemies, but we also have to constantly make sure we don't flip the minecart. And I mean, how could you forget? Luis reminds us every chance he can.
The cart's tipping over! Shit! This thing's gonna flip! Shit! This thing's gonna flip! Hit the brake! What? Are you serious? Jump!
Having Luis with us throughout this entire section really changes everything. Capcom really wanted to do right by his character and give him the justice he deserved. Throughout the game, up until this point, he's just a man trying to right his wrongs. He doesn't want to be remembered as a villain, but as a hero, just like Don Quixote. So, when his time comes, it makes it that much more heartbreaking to see him go.
Almost what?
Luis!
Krauser is the one to deal the killing blow to Luis.
Long time no see, rookie.
And instead of a scripted QTE fight, we are now in control of Leon throughout the entire sequence. The fight itself is a close quarters knife battle. It's almost like a sparring session between a sensei and his It's almost like a sparring session between a sensei and his apprentice. Krauser is methodical with his strikes, and each hit he lands is done so with utmost precision. But the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, because Leon has also mastered the art. But the mentor always gets the upper hand. Krauser kicks Leon to the ground, and just before he finishes him for good, Luis uses the little strength he has to save Leon.
Enough play, rookie. You haven't changed a damn bit.
Luis's death is probably the most emotional scene in the entire game. Even while his body slowly succumbs to the cold embrace of death, he is still thinking of Ashley. In one of his last gestures, he gives Leon a key to his laboratory to kill the Plaga. The last words he utters are that of a man who desperately wanted to be a hero.
Had a pretty shitty life. But now, eh? What do you think, Leon? People can change, right?
Capcom really hit it out of the park when it came to reshaping Luis for the remake. He went from an elusive figure to a tragic hero. With the death of Luis still fresh in Leon's mind, it's now time to finish Salazar once and for all. But in order to do that, Leon has to make his way up the tower. Like I said before, the original had 2 towers, but in the remake, Capcom combined the 2 into one structure. Although the building is now a combination of 2 ideas, it still feels uniform. As you run up the stairs, the glimpses of the old start to bleed through to the new. The cultists hold the same animosity towards Leon like they did before. Capcom even brought back the iconic Salazar statue, but this time around it doesn't become sentient and chase us. From the elevator ride to the overall feeling of the sequence, it's really classic, and it feels even more fulfilling the moment Leon comes face to face with Salazar.
Do tell our Lord to not forget the loyalty of his servant, Ramon.
Ashley!
So Leon at this point is completely fed up with the entire situation.
Lord Settlers,
You talk too much.
failed.
You vulgar!
One of my favorite things about Leon in this game is how quick he is to just pop a villain mid-sentence. Now, obviously Ramon is not dead. He becomes a giant mass of flesh that's been infused with the Queen Plaga, as one does.
Stage is set for the final act.
The battle is way more dynamic in the remake as opposed to the more stationary fight in the OG. In his monstrous form, Salazar floats around like an octopus and spews black acid all over the arena. His tentacles and tendrils slash around and are also used to just launch himself across the room and to attack Leon. It's honestly a completely different fight. His weak point is exposed way more often, and when he takes enough damage, we stab him, which is a common theme in this game as a whole. Now, we could do all that and fight him completely legit, or we could, you know, throw an egg at him. The moment Salazar hits the ground, it marks the end of Leon's stay at the castle, a symbolic end to a once familiar world. Capcom really did a fantastic job with reimagining such an iconic portion of the original. What we once knew to be the castle has been completely rewritten, rebuilt from the ground up. Every element from the atmosphere to the design has been reworked to construct an experience that feels both familiar and fresh. It deepens the narrative. It explores the emotional side of each main character, highlighting their vulnerabilities and shortcomings. It's an entirely different take on the story, and I absolutely love it just as I do the original. But when one chapter ends, another begins. Leon now has his sights on Krauser, but before he can get to the island, he needs a key, and it just so happens that the one holding it is Ada Wong.
Looking for something?
The island section of the game opens up with a conversation between Ada and Leon. Leon has still not gotten over what happened between the two of them in Raccoon City. He's convinced that he has changed since then, but there's one question looming in his mind. Has she?
I guess I changed too.
You. Leon S. Kennedy. You haven't changed. You just think you have.
So here's my question. Have you changed, Ada? Or are you just trying to use me again?
What do you think? We're here.
Leon's simple question is met with evasion, and before he can get a straight answer, she slips away, leaving him alone once more.
Story of my life.
The island itself is the shortest section in the entire game. It comprises just 4 chapters, and each of them aren't incredibly long. Before the remake came out, I thought for sure this section would be the one to change the most, but funnily enough, it hasn't seen nearly as much change as the castle. The main thing that separates it from the OG is that it's more streamlined. A good amount of things have been cut and replaced to enhance the flow and pacing. But what remains is a final act that resembles a classic blockbuster. Across both versions, Leon finds himself traversing up the rocky cliffs of the island, only to be exposed by the militarized Los Illuminados. The Ganados now arm themselves with shock batons, metal shields, and machine guns. The opening fight on the island is pretty similar to the OG. It only sports some slight differences in the form of turrets rather than mirrors. It also serves as an introduction to a brand new enemy type, one that replaces the classic JJ. The way the combat sequences are laid out allow for different playstyles. Leon can either go in fully guns blazing, or he can pick them off one by using the stealth mechanics. The island is a mix of many different styles. On the surface, it looks like a dark rocky island adorned with industrial factories. But as Leon goes deeper, many different thematic environments begin to reveal themselves. Although it's one central island, it's home to ancient ruins, scientific labs, military complexes, and other high-tech facilities. The remake, as I mentioned before, really streamlines the section quite a bit. It's a constant flow between the areas, and it seems to go by much faster. The path to Ashley has seen some changes as well. The rooms have been rearranged and shrunk in a way to enhance the claustrophobia of the facility, but no change is as impactful as her actual rescue. In the original, Ashley sits and bangs on the door, shouting Leon's name over and over again until you eventually find her.
Leon! Help me, Leon!
Ashley.
In the remake, however, she's handcuffed and lies unconscious within a cell, and in order to get to her, Leon has to obtain a level 3 keycard. What follows is a recreation of one of the most iconic parts of the original, a section that gave birth to one of the creepiest enemies in all of Resident Evil, the Regenerator.
What the f*** are you?
This slow-moving creature is one of the most infamous parts of the entire game. One of the things that makes them so terrifying is their noticeable lack of features. Their simplistic design is what I believe makes them so scary, as the lack of detail highlights the features they do have. They're also significantly faster and more deadly in the remake. In the original, they were pretty easy to avoid, but if you were caught by them, they would swiftly pin you to the floor. This is the first enemy in the entire game that Leon can't outright kill, or not yet at least. As Leon makes his way through the corridors of the lab, he is forced to reroute the power and enhance the clearance on his keycard. The original did something very similar, but not as elaborate. For instance, Capcom holds off on giving us the biosensor until a few rooms after the freezer. Withholding the scope actually adds more horror and weight to the section. Leon is forced to dodge the regenerators for longer, making the section more stressful, at least on the first playthrough. When Leon does obtain the biosensor scope, it allows him to effectively kill them. It's exactly the same as the original. Obviously, the regenerators regenerate when shot with normal bullets, but using the scope allows us to see the plaga within them. Destroying them, pops them like a pimple. With the keycard in hand, Leon can now open Ashley's cell. It's immediately apparent that the plaga has settled itself deep within Ashley. Her veins have been fully tainted, and if she isn't cured soon, she'll succumb to its effects. This scene holds a lot of emotional weight. Leon is trying his damnedest to fight off the urge of the plaga in order to be there for Ashley. He sits beside her bed, a protector and a guardian. No one is getting to her as long as he's there. In the original, Leon finds Ashley sitting in the corner, and their reunion is brief. Leon simply asks if she's okay. It doesn't really go much deeper, and it's followed by a paper airplane from Ada. The remake adds a bit more to the scene. Once Ashley wakes up, Leon tells her about the death of Luis.
Where's Luis?
He was worried about you. Till the end.
Luis's death wasn't just a one-and-done scene. It was a significant moment that was meant to last.
Let's get rid of these things.
For Luis.
This is the start of the literal uphill battle to the summit. The path is littered with encounters, both new and old. Classic enemies such as the Iron Maiden make a return.
Jesus. Cuddly bastard.
But much like the standard regenerators, the Iron Maidens have been made more aggressive. The waste disposal section of the island has also been reimagined. It's much darker, but also just not as stressful as before. Instead of 2 Iron Maidens, it's just 1, and a few Ganados that try to take Ashley. Since the rooms have undergone a significant change, Leon doesn't have to grab Ashley's hand and jump down the trash chute like before.
Sure does.
No way, Leon.
Way.
Are you out of your mind?
I knew you'd be fine if you landed on your butt.
But he doesn't really have to hold her hand at all during this section. The wrecking ball sequence is way different. Instead of a lever, there's an entire crane, and the moment Ashley sees it, she doesn't hesitate to volunteer and break down the wall. The remake's take on this scene is kind of a combination of the 2 sections from the OG, the bulldozer sequence and of course the wrecking ball. But what remains of the original in the remake is still a ton of enemies trying to make their way towards Ashley. It's not as stressful as the original Wrecking Ball room, which was insanely tight and full of even more enemies. The next major event to happen on the island comes pretty much right after the Wrecking Ball. For the entire game up until this point, Sadler has been physically absent. His presence is definitely felt throughout the narrative, but he's never actually been in the same room as Leon and Ashley. That is, until now.
This is our holy body. Our divine providence ensued. Such profound blessing for all. Lost blood. Welcome, my children. I am Osman Sadler, the speaker for our Lord.
Tell someone who gives a shit.
He forces her to take aim at Leon, but she manages to fight back against his influence.
Sweet child, do not resist.
Ashley might have been strong enough to foil Sadler's plan, but she's not strong enough to break from his grasp. She is taken once more. This moment marks the divide between the 2 versions. In the original, it flows directly into the Krauser knife fight, and it just so happens to be the first time Leon sees him at all in the game. It's a QTE fight, and is actually the same as what happened in the remake. The original Krauser was not a mentor to Leon, and is also not loyal to Sadler at all. He kidnapped Ashley as a means to earn his trust and obtain the sample for Umbrella. He works alongside Ada, and his relationship with Leon is not really personal at all. Funnily enough, it's Ada that breaks up the skirmish instead of Luis.
Ada!
Well, if it isn't the bitch in the red dress.
And now for the most absurd part of the game, and one that I absolutely love, the laser room. It's not in the main game for the remake, it's instead in the Separate Ways DLC, and the same goes for U3, or as Sadler likes to call him, It. By not having the U3 fight in the main game, it kind of makes the island feel shorter than it already is. Leon in the remake is led straight to the ruins, where he comes face to face with his past. Krauser is waiting. I love the dynamic between Leon and Krauser in the remake, and I think it's more than just a boss fight. It's Leon battling his past and overcoming his fear of failure. Krauser is the embodiment of all that guilt and self-loathing that he's felt over the years. He weaponizes Leon's internal conflict, forcing him to come to terms with the echoes of all the souls he couldn't save.
You can't save her. You can't save anyone.
Give it up, Krauser!
On the other hand, this fight is a final test for Krauser, the last step to achieving the unbridled power he has been seeking since the death of his unit. The fight is undoubtedly different from the original. It feels more heavy, and it could be in part due to the mental weight tied to the encounter. In both versions, Krauser is constantly hunting Leon, and calling out any mistakes he makes. No matter what though, all paths lead to the final arena.
Training's not done. Last lesson starts right now.
Nah. Time for the teacher to be taught.
The Plaga is cool and all, but it's not Magnum proof. Once enough damage has been dealt, Krauser will leap up to a cliff and slam down on the arena, causing Leon to fly off.
The way you're going, there won't be anything left to protect. You'd have known that once.
Even though more mechanics have been added, the stakes aren't as high in the remake, and that's mainly due to the fact that there are no longer bombs strapped to the tower. When the fight comes to a close, Krauser is left lying on the floor, a broken man consumed by his greed, but one who knows when he's beat.
What you have to do.
He urges Leon to finish him off with the very knife he once wielded. And with his last breath, he calls Leon by his full name for the first time.
Legend will. Leon.
This chapter in Leon's life has come to a close, but the story continues, and it reintroduces a legend, Mike. Mike is a fan-favorite character from the original, mainly due to his epic entrance and climactic death.
Thanks. When we get out of here, drinks are on me.
He's also tied to the most action-heavy part of both games. The push to the summit continues and becomes even more relentless. There is a literal army standing between Leon and Ashley. But that doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it's Leon f***ing Kennedy we're talking about here.
Present for you.
It's incredibly hectic. I mean, Leon is barreling through non-stop hellfire, and the only way out is forward. The run feels incredibly climactic. It's really over the top and just absurd, and it all eventually comes to an explosive finish, when Mike's chopper is taken down by a pack of Novistadors. Sadler emerges from the flames, and it almost feels like an invitation for Leon to follow him. So he does just that. After battling through even more enemies, Leon finally makes it to Ashley. But what he doesn't know is that he's stumbled right into a ritual.
You have come, my child.
Sadler is also way more brutal towards Leon, even though he doesn't palm strike him like he does in the OG. Instead, he tortures him from within by awakening the Plaga. He completely debilitates Leon without ever lifting a finger. His words are sharp enough to pierce through his entire body, and there isn't much more that Leon can take. Sadler's words may pierce through anyone, but so do bullets. Ada comes to the rescue just like she does in the original. She turns Sadler into Swiss cheese just long enough for Leon to grab Ashley and escape. The only problem is they're both running out of time. Leon and Ashley have reached their breaking point. The walk to the laboratory is long and draining as Leon begins to fall victim to the plaga. Hallucinations start to engulf every room as he slowly sinks into the hive mind. He has to stay strong though, because if he slips up, then neither of them are making it home. This is one of my favorite parts across both games. It's the ultimate climax in the story. Everything Leon has done up until this point won't matter if he doesn't get her into that chair.
This time, it has to be different.
You go first.
No way. Like I told you, I'm gonna get you home safe.
Leon fights until his body finally gives out, but not before Ashley is cured. As expected, the remake took a completely different angle when it came to approaching this scene. Like I said before, as much as I absolutely love the original Leon, he is definitely a lot less selfless than the remake. I say that mainly because he hops in the chair first.
There's only one way to find out. You operate.
Now, that could obviously have been for a good reason. He could have just been making sure it was safe, who knows. Also, the stakes were a lot less high in the original. He wasn't forced to carry her while also actively dying. But it's that specific act that makes Leon in the remake that much more heroic than the original. Throughout the whole game, he never put himself first. In his eyes, the mission is the priority, no matter what.
Ashley.
I'm right here. I thought you were gonna die.
Throughout the game, there have been moments of quiet support and revelation to Ashley from Leon. He's been constantly uplifting her ability to survive. But this moment towards the end of the game is a summation of all those parts, coming together to complete her arc, and to instill a final lesson derived from their relationship. That being, you are stronger than you think you are.
Keep this up, I'll be out of a job.
But the story isn't over yet. It doesn't end until Sadler stops breathing.
Hey guys, Fritz come down with a cold and can't speak. He really wanted to get this video out to you guys, but literally can't do a voiceover. But don't worry, these are still entirely his words. I'm just gonna take over for this last little chunk. It's just gonna sound a little bit different. In both versions, the final chapter consists of the final fight and the escape. The entire sequence is much more grand and epic in the remake, and it all starts when Leon takes Sadler's bait.
Ada!
Sadler has a much more cinematic entrance in the remake. He now emerges from a swarm of novistadors.
Sadler!
Sadler's entrance in the original is much more goofy and more in line with a classic action movie from the late 90s.
American prevailing is a cliche that only happens in your Hollywood movies.
Apart from that, one of the main differences is Ada's involvement. In this moment, the two of them almost feel like partners, whereas in the original, it just felt like Leon was her knight in shining armor, saving her from the big bad. Once the fight kicks off, the changes are immediately apparent. The arena is much larger, and so is Sadler himself. His final form towers over Leon, and despite his massive size, he's surprisingly much more agile. He stomps around the arena while also taking out chunks of each platform, steadily shrinking the arena to enhance the pressure. His attacks are ruthless. He'll either spit acid at you or crush you with his arms. On top of his new variety of attacks, he also summons flux of novistadors that surround the skies. The remake takes the fight a bit further. In the original, once you do enough damage, Ada will throw a special RPG to Leon in order to finish off the fight. In the remake, Sadler has a final stand. The evolution of the Plaga spirals into a colossal mass of flesh. It's a scripted sequence where we pretty much have to dodge and shoot until Ada throws us the coveted rocket launcher. This is one of my favorite scenes in the entire game. It's probably the most badass one as well. Leon leaps onto Sadler and takes him out once and for all.
I'll give you a holy body.
After Leon kills Sadler in spectacular fashion, Ada, of course, switches up once again.
Ada, what the hell are you doing?
Nothing personal, Leon. Luis and I had an arrangement.
Leon feels yet another betrayal from Ada. She uses him as a pawn to complete her mission. There's no end to her manipulation towards him, and it honestly might be one of the most complicated and unresolved relationships in all of gaming. Despite that, she can't leave without giving him something to remember her by.
Better get a move on.
Cute.
In the original, Ada is the one to rig the island to explode.
She really pushed it.
But in the remake, it feels like the island itself is dying. Now that Sadler is dead, everything just begins to deteriorate.
You like thrill rides? You're gonna love this.
The escape is the ultimate finale of Resident Evil 4. It's the climactic end to a journey full of heart and charm, and when the jet ski finally hits the last ramp, it marks the end of the game.
You alright?
I'm not sure, that was insane.
Now, obviously the story isn't entirely over just yet. Ashley takes some time to flirt with Leon, as one does after being saved by an absolute legend.
You know, I could put in a word with my dad. Have you assigned to my detail, if you're interested.
In this scene, we quite literally get to see Leon in a new light as the sun shines down on him for the first time in the entire game. Not only did Leon save Ashley, he also redeemed himself for what happened in Raccoon City. He proved that he has changed and that he possesses all of the qualities of a hero. It's a very storybook ending, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
In classic fashion, there's an end credits scene showing us what becomes of Ada after the escape. It's revealed that the man behind her mission is none other than Albert Wesker, the big bad himself. But before jumping into any further conclusions, I feel it's necessary to show Ada's side of the story. So, let's go back to where it all started. On October 25th, 2005, Resident Evil 4 came out on the PlayStation 2, and unlike the original GameCube release, this version came with something entirely new, an additional mode known simply as Separate Ways. Instead of playing as Leon, we see everything unfold through the eyes of Ada Wong. This bonus campaign allowed us to see the game from a different angle. It gave context to certain plot points and revealed what was happening behind Leon's back. It served as a way to glue the entire story together. It filled in the missing pieces that weren't shown in the base game. Now, when it comes to the gameplay, it didn't really do anything special. It was essentially an asset flip, and apart from one new location, Ada pretty much just ran the same course as Leon, but backwards and much faster. The entire runtime was around 2.5 to 3 hours, and consisted of just 5 missions. It wasn't anything groundbreaking. But despite that, it was an essential part of the lore within Resident Evil 4. So when the remake finally released in 2023, its absence was immediately felt. For all the amazing changes and additions the remake implemented, it was clearly still missing something very important. And on September 21st, 2023, that missing piece of the puzzle finally arrived. And with it came an entirely new experience. One that not only lived up to its expectations, but far exceeded them. This is the reimagining of Separate Ways. Much like in the original, Ada is still very much a world-class super spy. Only this time, the DLC leans further into that identity. Separate Ways is just a full-on action-packed spy thriller. But beyond the action, it also serves as a looking glass into Ada's character. It shows a side of her we rarely get to see. One capable of emotion, hesitation, and even heroism. Ada's always been known to be an elusive character. She keeps her cards close to her chest. She's cold and detached, and rarely ever sticks around for a full conversation. But somehow, she can't seem to hide from her conflicting conscience throughout the entire DLC. Her moral compass and worldview begin to shift due to the events that occur throughout the story. It's this shift that leads to her eventual act of defiance towards Wesker. But how exactly does she get to that point? Well, that's what Separate Ways is for. It's here to turn the story upside down in order to reveal the full picture. The opening to Separate Ways is completely different from the original, and it immediately sets the tone for the rest of the DLC. Like I said before, it's a classic spy thriller through and through. It even has a level of cheesiness that resembles that of the original. The story begins with a dance, and a pretty iconic one at that. It's a very suave intro, and Ada of course uses her signature finesse to join in on the show.
That's no way to finish a dance.
In this moment, we get our first true look into her relationship with Luis. In fact, Luis plays a pivotal role in the DLC just like he does in the main game. His character, along with Leon, is essentially a catalyst for Ada's eventual moral shift. But right now, Ada doesn't have time for change. In fact, she isn't ready for it. She's focused on one thing and one thing only, the mission. And right now, she needs to get Luis out of the castle. But that's easier said than done, because standing in her way is one of Salazar's deadly henchmen, a creature known simply as the Black Robe. And this is where the remake makes one of its most significant changes. In 2005, there wasn't a looming threat shadowing over Ada. She didn't have a villain specifically tied to her. All of them pretty much just went to Leon, and she was kinda just there to pick up the scraps. But here it's different. For the majority of the DLC, he relentlessly stalks and preys on Ada. He's always watching, always waiting. And when the time comes, he forces his way into the story when she least expects it. Each encounter with him is more intense than the last, and even then, he doesn't let up. But neither does Ada. She has a specific way of handling certain situations, and it's all done with a particular level of finesse. After Ada deals with the Black Robe, we are reintroduced to one of the most iconic villains in the entire Resident Evil universe, Albert Wesker.
What will you do about it?
Luis is already en route to the church. I'm tracking him every step of the way.
Very well. Then I suggest you hurry.
He obviously appears at the very end of the main game, but here we pretty much see him throughout the entire DLC. I mean, after all, he is Ada's employer, and his ultimate goal is to obtain the Amber in order to fuel his god complex, and to weed out the weak, leaving only the strongest to rule the world. It's essentially a forced evolution through mass extinction. Ada, of course, doesn't dare bite the hand that feeds her, so for now, she plays along like a puppet on a string, blind to her own complicity. Her path forward has just become more complicated. She now has to make her way to the church in order to rendezvous with Luis, but first, she has some business to take care of. This is where the DLC truly showcases Ada's unique combat and traversal mechanics, most notably her signature hookshot, which has now been fully implemented into the gameplay. It's not just used for traversal and accessing new areas, no, it's a deadly tool used in combat as well. But not everything in her arsenal is deadly. She also has an accessory known as the Iris, used for tracking and investigating. In many ways, Ada is essentially just Catwoman with a gun. She's agile, untrustworthy, and always one step ahead.
So he wants me to retrieve the Amber.
an object of ill omen. What terrible actions will be done in its name, and who will pay its dark cost? Because in this world, someone always pays. Best not to ask who or why. I understood that. Made my peace with it. Until that one night in Raccoon City changed everything.
In Ada's monologue, she talks about the amber and the danger it poses while also looking back on the trauma she endured back in Raccoon City. No matter how much she tries to hide it, that night truly changed her. It taught her to question her own motives as well as everyone else's, whereas before, she had made peace with not knowing who pays the ultimate price. This monologue sets the stage for her internal conflict, one that begins to slowly unravel through the course of the story. And as she makes her way to the church, we as the players are reintroduced to familiar areas that are shown in a new light. The areas feel almost still and undisturbed. Leon's presence has yet to wander this deep into the village. And as Ada makes her way closer to the church, it becomes apparent that something is stirring within the community, and that just so happens to be Leon's arrival.
So kind of you to keep our friends busy. Let's see if we can find another route to the church.
One of my favorite things about Separate Ways in general is just how Capcom intertwined the two stories together. In both versions of the DLC, Ada is the one to ring the church bell in the beginning of the game. The main difference between the two is that in the original, Ada is actually a part of the village fight itself. She's in the background fighting while Leon has his back turned. The remake, however, doesn't do this. Instead, after not finding Luis at the designated meeting area, Ada decides to lend Leon some help.
Sounds like he could use a little help. Don't worry, Leon. First time's free.
Now that Leon has entered the fold, both stories are now moving at the same time, but their paths rarely cross. While Leon makes his way through the village, Ada finds herself backtracking to the main square, and is immediately greeted by a familiar face, the merchant.
Hey, stranger. So what are you buying?
You've picked quite the place to set up shop, stranger.
Aye, and look what it brought me.
Funnily enough, the merchant has been heavily changed from the original, which didn't allow for Ada to upgrade any of her weapons. All you could do was buy and sell. Speaking of weapons, Ada's loadout is the same as the OG. Both the sawed-off shotgun and explosive crossbow make a return, but this time they can be fully upgraded. She'll need any weapon she can get, because the moment she enters the square, she immediately encounters something that isn't native to the village. The Black Robe arrives once again. This fight is really unique, and the same can be said about the Black Robe himself. His main ability is the art of hallucination. He essentially surrounds the arena with shadow clones that mimic his every move. The entire area has been coated in a thick fog, and everything about it feels surreal. Even though it's an open area, it somehow feels like everything around Ada is closing in. When Ada eventually gains the upper hand, something within her prevents her from finishing the fight.
What is wrong with me?
It's clear that Ada is showing early signs of the Plaga infection, which is a brand new story beat in the remake. In the very first cutscene with the Black Robe, Ada gets hit with a bit of shrapnel from one of his attacks. This small injury was the gateway for the virus to enter her system. Having Ada suffer from the Plaga adds an entirely new element to the story. Now, the beauty of Separate Ways is that it never slows down, it only continues to ramp up, and this constant narrative flow brings Ada to the village manor, where she saves Leon for a second time. Although Ada saves Leon, she is still very much using him to benefit her own mission. But she also still cares for him. Like I said, it's a complicated relationship. But once Leon leaves, Ada slips into the manor to investigate, and is completely blindsided by Mendez. Ada is chased out of the manor and into the woods that lead directly to the factory. It's here where she investigates the holding cell, but in classic fashion, she is interrupted yet again, this time by the rev of 2 chainsaws.
A clean strike.
She literally can't catch a break, because the moment she escapes, she immediately passes out due to the plaga, just like Leon. And after hours of being unconscious, she wakes up to Wesker.
Having a bad day?
Wesker, to what do I owe this pleasure?
Wesker in the remake is way more involved in the conflict than in the original. This time around, he isn't just a guy giving directions from a chair. No, he pops up multiple times to remind her of who's in charge.
Not here to babysit you. See that you remain an asset and not a liability. I have absolutely no use for your incompetence.
Easy with the threats, Wesker.
Just get it done. I'll be in touch.
Now at this point in the main story, Leon and Ashley are just now making their way towards the cabin, but following closely behind is Ada. Both sequences are parallel to one another. Ada fights through the square just like Leon, but instead of seeking shelter in a cabin, she doesn't have anywhere to retreat back to, because standing in her way is an El Gigante. In the remake, the El Gigante has been given an actual boss fight, whereas in the original, the fight took place in a narrow area similar to the encounter after the original cabin. This new rendition of the fight includes mechanics. Albeit simple, they add more of a dynamic feel to the fight. Ada has to zip around between buildings as the El Gigante crumbles each structure from below. It's a pretty cool fight, and it does a great job of showing off Ada's mobility. Now after some time, the El Gigante finally falls, and Ada finishes it off for good.
Now stay down. Sweet dreams.
Immediately following the fight, Ada and Luis reunite with one another, and the scene is exactly the same as the main game. But the difference this time around is that there's more context. That's the beauty of Separate Ways as a whole. It provides even more context to the narrative, which further impacts the story. As the scene concludes, we finally see what becomes of their interaction, and it just so happens to lead them to Salazar's castle. As they scale the castle walls, something within Luis itches to be let out. And the moment they have a minute to themselves, it reveals itself.
There is this one thing I must do before I can recover the Ember.
Before? This is not a negotiation, Louis, so choose your next words carefully.
Whoa. Listen, there is someone who needs my help. You know me, always the good Samaritan.
Let me guess. Leon?
Yes, exactly. Leon and that young woman, they're both infected. They need this medicine. It slows the infection, and I know it works. I used it. On myself.
We already know that Luis is motivated by his need to do good, but this scene shows another angle of his transformation. It proves that everything he was doing for Leon and Ashley was genuine. But of course, that doesn't stop Ada from pointing a gun to his head. The situation is de-escalated when Luis tells Ada straight up that she is also infected. As soon as she realizes what's at stake, her demeanor shifts a bit, and you can actually see the subtle emotion leak from her face. Obviously, in order to succeed in her mission, she needs to be alive, so she allows Luis the chance to help not only her, but Leon and Ashley as well. In the main game, Luis calls Leon right when he enters the castle and lets him know that there is a medicine to suppress the symptoms. In separate ways, we get to see what actually becomes of that medicine, because shortly after the call ends, Ada and Luis make their way to the laboratory. But instead of finding it in one piece, they are met with fire. Luis can't just sit there and watch everything he's made come undone. No, he runs into the fire with reckless abandon. Ada, of course, can't just let him die. She runs into the fire herself in order to save him.
If you're trying to kill yourself, can you do it after you've delivered the amber?
Luis is clearly distraught as everything he worked for continues to burn in the fire. His last shot at redemption has been reduced to ashes, or so it seems.
Make more. You know how, just do it.
Ada suggests that he just makes more of the medicine, and it's this realization that drives the momentum throughout the rest of the castle section. The ingredients Luis needs happen to be within the castle, and it's Ada's job to retrieve them.
Wish me luck.
While searching for the ingredients, Ada reunites with Leon for the first time in person, and the interaction is exactly the same. But we now know something that Leon doesn't. Ada is currently working towards getting the medicine he and Ashley both need. Since Ada doesn't work alongside him and chooses not to tell him, Leon never finds this out, and he's never really made aware of anything she has done for him up until this point. She acts as a silent guardian, and never seeks validation from anyone. All of her good deeds go unnoticed, and that's on purpose. So before Leon can collect himself fully, Ada has already disappeared out the window. After their interaction, we are taken back to familiar locations both from the main game and the original RE4. In the OG, there were areas within the castle that didn't quite make the cut in the remake, but that was purposeful, because now they are present in separate ways. Areas such as the Novistador sewers and the drill room make a return, but both of them have been given that signature remake aesthetic. The drill room has been drastically changed, while still remaining nostalgic. There are no longer two cultists driving a drill towards Ashley. Instead, Ada has to shoot her way out. A lot of the castle in separate ways feels more like the original in a way. It's almost as if Ada is being tested within each room, forced into an obstacle course of sorts. Even though the castle in separate ways is more in line with the OG, it still feels like it belongs in the remake. It shares the same look and tone while maintaining a vibe specific to the original. After finding all of the ingredients, Ada makes it to the castle's exterior where she meets up with Luis. During the time in which Ada was grabbing all the ingredients, Luis finds the amber. But there's a slight problem. The parasite within Ada reacts harshly to the amber, and it immediately begins to intensify all of the symptoms she was already experiencing. Now, of course, Luis whips up a vial of medicine in 10 seconds and administers it to Ada.
This will knock out the parasite, but only for a time. Just remember, it's not a cure. We still need to find a way to get that thing out of you.
But like he said, it's not a cure, and it also takes some time for it to start working. But the last thing she has is time, because just as the medicine enters her system, fog devours the skies.
It's coming.
The black robe always tends to show up at the most convenient times.
I don't understand. It should be working by now.
Take the amber and go. Once the parasite is sedated, you can give me back that damn stone.
I can't leave you here. Not like this.
Spare me. I'll be fine. You got another promise to keep.
Ada has been completely stripped of her strength and is forced to run and hide until the medicine finally begins to work. But even when she regains her strength, she can't risk another fight just yet. The Black Robe's bloodlust has no end, and it's only a matter of time before he finally shows his true colors. Once he leaves, the objective goes right back to what it's been for the entire DLC, catch up to Luis. This of course leads Ada through the Novistador sewer, which is much darker in the remake and more extensive. It now includes multiple enemy types rather than just the Novistadors. And instead of leading back to the main castle, it goes straight into a brand new encounter, the Garrador Arena. This new addition is honestly great. I'm a huge fan of the Garrador sections in the remake, and this honestly might be my favorite one. The room is very grimy and dirty. It could honestly pass as a room in RE7 or Village. After putting down the Garrador, the adrenaline halts itself for a minute as a way to signify that something is coming. When Ada hears the roar of the Black Robe, she knows what must be done. The only way to put an end to his terror is to face him once and for all.
That's it. Come on now. This spot will do.
The Black Robe takes on many different names, such as Basanta, and of course, U3. Now, U3 was a boss fight specific to Leon in the original, and the first phase of the fight was a race against time. It took place in what is essentially a death trap. The floor would give out, which caused the maze to slowly shrink. All of this happened while U3 followed closely behind. In separate ways, however, the fight begins on the ground. Basanta has now entered his true form, which now means there are no more hallucinations for him to hide behind. No, it's just him and Ada.
Can't stand the clingy type. Time to end this for good.
He uses various attacks to pressure Ada throughout the entire fight. He uses his tail to either swipe or crush, all while deploying explosive parasitic mines on the floor. It's really involved and feels like an upgraded version of the original. The attacks mixed with the evasions almost feel like a dance. It's a really well-tuned boss fight, and it's pushed even further when the second phase finally begins. After Basanta falls for the first time, we think the fight is over, but that is far from the case, because the moment we grab the loot, he awakens. After Ada is tossed into the cave below, the second phase begins. He's much more volatile during this phase. He moves around like a sandworm, and his attacks are much more brutal. And in return, Ada has to get her hands even dirtier than before. After defeating Basanta, the parasite within Ada begins to react violently to the death of its master. She falls to the ground and is hit with debilitating pain. This is the first time in the game we truly see Ada cower, but it's at this moment that her body purges the infection for good. The moment she killed Basanta, the parasite had nothing left to live for and died along with him. Just as Ada regains full control, she is contacted by Luis, who informs her that he's not going to make it, and he thanks her for giving him the opportunity to set things right.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to make it. I'll send you my files. They should help.
The amber, Luis. Where is it?
Thank you for the chance to do good again.
What are you saying?
I'm grateful. Like I said, I'm just your good old Samaritan. How about you help Leon when I'm gone, eh? Speaking of,
Ada finally makes it to where Luis was killed, and she finds out that Krauser is the one who did it. And on top of that, he took the amber. She doesn't hesitate to pursue him, and in the process, she makes sure to let Leon know where Ashley is being taken.
Leon, there's only time to say this once, so listen up. They took your friend to the top of the clock tower. If you hurry, you might get there before she turns into one of them.
So you aren't heartless after all. I guess I should be thankful.
Yeah, you should.
The rest of the castle section is pretty much just an uphill battle along the cliffside. It's a last-ditch effort to close in on Krauser. Now, in the original Separate Ways, Ada is actually the one to kill Krauser and not Leon. This event takes place on the island. It made more sense for that to happen in the original, mainly because the two of them were actually working together, and it showed where her loyalty truly lied. But in the remake, they completely altered Krauser and his motives, along with his relationship towards Ada, which is practically non-existent. It wouldn't make any sense for any of that to happen in the remake. But while Ada tracks down Krauser, along the way there are certain rooms that are ripped directly from the original RE4. Now, this is all happening while Leon makes his way towards Salazar, and when Ada finally sees their confrontation, she for some reason calls him a good boy again.
Good boy. Just keep him busy a little longer.
I think my favorite thing about this sequence in general is how quick it is. So Ada moves through this entire area relatively quickly. It's not a really long section, but in that time, Leon manages to scale the clock tower and fight Salazar. And when Ada finally gets down the elevator, she's only alone in the boat room for like maybe 20 seconds before Leon arrives. Bro is booking it. But it's in this room where Leon and Ada reunite, and it also marks the end of the castle section, making way for the island.
Ah, damn it.
Looking for something?
Just like the main game, Leon asks if Ada has changed at all in the last 6 years. And of course, she doesn't give him an answer. But after playing and seeing her perspective, we can categorically say that she has changed in a way. Her change is different to Leon's. It manifests itself in another form. Her change comes primarily through her actions and not her words. It's her actions that allowed Luis to fulfill his need of becoming a hero. And her actions are ultimately the reason why Leon is even able to ask her that question in the first place. Because without her helping him from the shadows time and time again, who knows what could have become of him in that village? She doesn't fish for affirmation. She doesn't have to take credit for some righteous act. No, she does so because she wants to, and that's something she'll never admit. When the two of them arrive at the island, we see a different angle of Ada's exit. She puts a tracker on Leon just before he drives away.
Story of my life.
Rather than throwing us directly into the action, Capcom instead starts the section off with silence. And that silence just so happens to be shared between Sadler and Krauser. This is actually the first time in the DLC that we get to see Sadler at all, and it comes at a crucial point in the story, because Krauser has just given him the amber. Ada watches this entire exchange go down through her sniper scope, but it's not just what's in front of her that she needs to worry about.
Whose blood are you here for this time? Mine or Sadler's?
That all depends on you.
Wesker once again shows up, but this time he has a gun pointed at her head. He's come to give her a new objective, and refusal isn't an option. Ada, of course, doesn't know what lies within the briefcase just yet, or its purpose, but she doesn't have a choice. She must do as she's told.
And remember, I do not like
waiting, I know.
Following this scene, Ada is thrown directly into action. And just like the main game, the island is the shortest section of the entire DLC. She actually goes through the same exact areas as Leon, minus a few brand new set pieces. The cool thing about it though is that she moves through these locations either before or after Leon, and this affects how the encounters play out. Ada goes through the Wrecking Ball sequence before they get the chance to, and because of this, the Ganados are at high alert. The pacing is relatively quick throughout this entire portion of the game. It's pretty much just one encounter after another. But after escaping the Regenerators, Ada is brought to one of the most iconic parts of the original, the gondola. The gondola was actually a part of the village in the OG, but they decided to move it here to the island. Following this is a brand new action set piece specific to the remake, which is essentially a war zone filled with turrets and soldier ganados. Ada storms the compound relentlessly. This area is honestly similar to the climactic run with Mike and Leon, but to a smaller scale of course, and it also leads to something much more sinister. Upon clearing the area, Ada stumbles into a testing facility. The facility itself has been ravaged and torn apart, and as she walks further, the ground begins to shake and the ceiling starts to crumble as a distant roar howls throughout the building. Something is being held here, and it clearly wants out. So the monster that Ada is running from is known as Martinico, and it's essentially an experimental BOW that became grotesquely deformed. And after it broke out of containment, the monster wreaked havoc on the facility and its researchers. But now, it has its sights on Ada. In terms of gameplay, it's your standard chase. Ada is able to squeeze through areas in order to avoid its wrath. But the creature has already caught on to her scent, and has no plans of losing her. Ada is now given a moment to sort of breathe and collect herself, but that soon ends when she finds herself staring down a rather familiar hallway. That's right, the lasers are back. They aren't as spectacular as they are in the original, but they're still really damn sick, and don't worry, this isn't the last you'll see of them. Funnily enough, the lasers were protecting the very room Ada needed to go. How convenient. The device she's been carrying all this time can be enabled from the terminal, and when she finally hooks it up, she realizes what Wesker has planned for the island.
Site inject into the main terminal. You're going to blow up this entire island, including the president's daughter. Won't that make things harder for you?
There's no room for half measures. The weak exist to serve the strong. Enough talk. Bring me the amber. I've arranged a way for you to get back to the island.
Copy that. On it now.
Being the rebel she is, she feels inclined to immediately fight back against his order, and ends up sabotaging the bombs, causing only a third of them to detonate.
You should have known by now, Wesker, that I don't always play by your rules.
Ada operates out of her own self-interest, and while doing so, she plants the seeds of her eventual betrayal towards Wesker. Now, the thing is, Ada can't just leave without saying goodbye to Martinico.
Only one way through this.
After Martinico gets diced to bits, Ada heads back to the main island via jet ski, and she just so happens to stumble into the climax of the story.
Exalt Thor, and let it be so.
Leon! Go!
Ada once again saves Leon and Ashley, but instead of retreating to the shadows, she is thrown into the spotlight. This is the final boss fight in both versions of Separate Ways. Ada battles Sadler before Leon, and it's in this moment we see another side of him. He walks around the arena like a tyrant, bearing godlike powers that hit like a truck. Despite his smaller stature, his power is nothing to scoff at, and in my opinion, he seems even stronger in this fight than Leon's. His attacks are incredibly deadly, and one wrong move can easily lead to a death. One of the most obvious changes from the original is the setting for the fight itself. It completely changes the vibe and the fight in general. The OG is way more claustrophobic, and it honestly feels like Sadler is constantly breathing down your neck for the entire encounter. But no matter the year, you still gotta shoot his nasty ass eyeball. Once the fight ends, Ada grabs the amber.
Control, come in. I have the package.
But unbeknownst to her, she's been tricked into thinking she won. What follows is the finale of both the DLC and the main game, and it all begins after Leon rescues Ada.
Ada!
Throughout the story, Leon and Ada's paths have aligned at times, but this is the first moment we see everything unfolding simultaneously. Everything has led them to this very platform, but both are driven by different desires, and it's this drive that pushes them to end it once and for all. In order to win the fight, they literally have to go their separate ways. While Leon fights Sadler head-on, Ada dives headfirst into the lion's den to retrieve the iconic rocket launcher.
Just what I was looking for.
The entire sequence is just as epic and grand as the main game, but this time, we get the full picture from Ada's perspective. Much like the original, it's a race against time. Ada fights through a relentless gauntlet of enemies to reach the rocket, and even when she finally gets it, her job isn't done. Now, she has to deliver it to Leon. On her way to the crane, Ada unexpectedly runs into Ashley, who urgently implores her to help save Leon. This moment adds a new emotional layer to the fight. It reminds Ada what's truly at stake other than her mission. And when she finally tosses the rocket his way, it marks the end of Sadler. Sadler may be out of the picture, but what he left behind still remains. When Ada finally gets her hands on the amber, it seems as though her mission is complete, but it isn't. And after finding out what Wesker plans to do with the amber, what he plans to unleash onto the world, she betrays him. In doing so, she answers Leon's question. She has changed. With the amber gone and most of the island still intact, Wesker is left on his boat, contemplating what comes next. It's revealed that he didn't need the amber after all, because sitting there, lifeless on the table, is Krauser. Wesker's plan was never foiled. Ada's betrayal was a mere hurdle. His dream of global domination will soon become reality.
Soon, the sun will set on the age of man.
Separate Ways is simply a fantastic DLC, an essential piece of the Resident Evil 4 experience. It ties the entire story together, filling in crucial gaps, and in doing so, it strengthens the narrative as a whole. It's also a substantial DLC. It wasn't just released for the sake of being released. No, it was made with purpose, and it drastically improved upon its predecessor. It walks a fine line between being a story add-on and its own standalone game. I mean, hell, it feels more substantial than the Resident Evil 3 remake, which was sold at full price. Everything about it is just great, and it will go down as one of the best, if not the best, Resident Evil DLC of all time. It's an unforgettable chapter in an already unforgettable game. Both versions of Resident Evil 4 hold a special place in my heart. The very first time I ever laid eyes on the original, it was love at first sight, and since then, it has only grown better with age. It's a timeless classic that not only shaped an entire genre, but laid the foundation for modern action games. Without it, some of the most recognizable titles in all of gaming wouldn't exist. Its influence on the medium is undeniable, and the remake serves as a reminder of its staying power within pop culture. Capcom didn't want to remake the same game. No, they wanted to reimagine it, and in doing so, they gave birth to a new masterpiece, one that's name can be used in the same breath as the greats. They managed to write the most sincere love letter to the original, while also making sure that what was written can stand on its own 2 feet. They crafted a more mature and emotional story that sheds a new light on the characters and the environments they inhabit. The gameplay has one of the most refined third-person combat systems in any game I've ever played. The graphics paint a much more believable picture, and it complements the new design incredibly well. This is exactly how you remake a game. It's not about copying the original script. No, it's about evolving with the times, setting a new course of direction, and bending the original in a way that alters it, while also maintaining the same DNA as its forefather. Now, obviously, there are aspects from both games that I prefer over the other. The main factor contributing to whether or not I play the remake over the OG and vice versa is the mood I'm in. They both serve different roles. If I'm looking for a more classic and funny experience, I'm obviously gonna choose the original. But if I'm looking for a more intense and grounded take on the game, I'm gonna have to go with the remake. At the end of the day, comparison is the thief of joy, and in this case, both versions are legendary.